What happens when the people of God actually stand up? The whole world said, enough of this nonsense. This kid needs the Lord. And America was praying for him. And the NFL got on board. We literally changed the NFL in less than 24 hours because the people of God were bold and said, we're praying.
If you guys are unaware, Tony participated in the March for Life event over the weekend in Washington, D.C. And that participation sparked a lot of people, a lot of news organizations and journalists to attack Tony Dungy for, right-wing bigotry, and, he's a biblical bigot, and the attacks came from all different locations, from the hometown Indianapolis Star, where Tony led the Colts to a Super Bowl. A guy named Greg Dole wrote a long piece just shredding Tony, to of course, a group like Deadspin shredded him, but Kevin Blackistone with ESPN shredded Tony Dungy. Dr. Harry Edwards. You guys know Dr. Harry Edwards, his long association with athletes, and particularly black athletes, and the protest movement. Everybody upset with Tony Dungy for sticking to biblical values, and it's kind of similar, Ken, I would think, to the kind of attacks Bill McCartney suffered from starting and being the face of the Promise Keepers movement. Do you see any similarities?
Yeah, a lot. They had to shut Coach up in the 90s, and they have to shut Coach up now. And, Jesus promises us that if we do it the right way, if we're standing for him and we're standing for biblical values, that we will be hated. In fact, he says when people hate you and say all kinds of evil things about you, rejoice, great is your reward in heaven. And so Tony, I think, is showing that he is on the right side, doing the right thing. He is earning rewards in heaven. The question is, what will we do to support him and be in that game? Because the more he stands up, the worse it's going to get for him.
You led me to my next question that I'm going to ask you and Anthony. I was outraged watching the attacks on Tony, particularly over social media, and then reading articles. And some of the attacks had to do with Tony tweeted out something in relation to there's a movement to put tampons in boys' bathrooms. And Tony snarkily said, yeah, they're putting litter boxes in bathrooms for kids that identify as kittens or whatever. And the trans movement and the whole LGBT movement is like, oh my God, Tony's is spreading misinformation that hasn't happened, and kids are now going to commit suicide because of Tony's tweet, which he deleted and apologized for, which, I think the apologies over the top, unnecessary, probably even the deletion. He was being sarcastic to make a point that he's not buying putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. That's not a controversial opinion, but this whole we'll start here. Why are Christians so reluctant to publicly come out and defend Tony Dungy? It feels like we'd rather defend sinners than saints.
Yeah, boy, that's well said. I'm going to take it back to Damar Hamlin for a second to point out why it's so important that they attack Tony Dungy. Damar, my good friend John Mulder, said the next day after Damar Hamlin happened that he became America's son that night. So you have this time where everyone on ESPN is saying we have to pray for Damar. Everyone, and I always talk about this, where you find out who you are in a moment of panic. How did you respond? That shows you your character. It's not when you have it all together. It's when you don't. America responded in a moment of panic to prayer in trauma. And an hour went by, and everyone was saying over and over again, we have to pray for Damar. And then the NFL comes out with a statement and says, our thoughts are with Damar. And it sounded so hollow and shallow from the NFL. Then the players' union comes out and says, we're praying for Damar. By the next day, the NFL has all 32 teams with a pray for Damar thing. They got on board. And my point is twofold. What happens when the people of God actually stand up? The whole world said, enough of this nonsense. This kid needs the Lord, and America was praying for him, and the NFL got on board. We literally changed the NFL in less than 24 hours because the people of God were bold and said, we're praying. The second thing was the immense amount of unity around America, because I found we weren't nearly as divided as I thought we were. America is not as lost as I thought we were, because in a moment of trauma, we all turned to God around this young man. Tony Dungy is the representation of the NFL and Christ together, of unity, of compassionate humility. They have to attack him, because all this stuff you talk about transgender, this isn't a coincidence. This is an effort led by Satan to bring down the church, bring down America. And we in the church have been way too comfortable. We have forgotten the fact that Jesus said we live in evil times. Because they hated me, they're going to hate you. If they don't hate us for being loving and kind and spreading the word of Christ, then we're doing it wrong. If we're popular and everybody thinks we're great, according to the words of Christ, we're doing something wrong. Tony Dungy is now, we're seeing a guy take the lead on this. Will we now take these lessons we're learning? We can change America. We changed it that fast on Damar Hamlin. And look how the Lord blessed America, blessed that kid, because we all came behind him. What are we going to do now? Are we going to stand with it, or are we going to back off again?
Anthony, do you, and the reason why I say like we run out and I'm going to use a less controversial, less polarizing name. I came up with one this morning, like people, public figures and people over social media were more passionate about defending Meek Mill, a rapper's reputation, when he ran afoul of the law and violated his probation and got locked up. People were more quick to defend a Meek Mill, a rapper, than I thought people were to say, oh, Tony Dungy? All that he's done, all the people that he's helped, and y'all writing this kind of trash, calling it almost seems like we've turned, and the NFL's been a part of this, everything is about criminal justice reform and what we can do for criminals. And it just seems like we've forgotten about, hey, what can we do for people that boldly advance us the way that Tony Dungy has advanced all of mankind? But when you start thinking about what he's done for black coaches in the NFL, for Michael Vick, for someone like me, just telling me, messaging me, Jason, quit cussing. You're representing Jesus, don't cuss. I mean, this. Anyway, it just seems like we're quicker to defend sinners than saints.